What's going on, guys? So I did a video back when I first had this Gibson exhaust installed on my 4Runner. It was like 4 years ago, and I figured I'm probably due to have a long-term update review video, and that's what we're going to be doing today. So for starters, though, I know it's always difficult to capture sound accurately through videos, and because you're going through microphones and speakers and stuff like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a clip of a cold start of my Tacoma right next to a cold start of the 4Runner here, just to give you kind of a reference point, because if you're a Toyota truck enthusiast, chances are you probably know what a 4-liter V6 sounds like. So one of the main things that I wanted to talk about with this Gibson exhaust is whether or not it drones. And that was a big part of my original video. And honestly, it was my one and only complaint, really, for the most part. But first, I want to show you what the exhaust is looking like. So this is the Gibson Black Elite Series exhaust, and this is the stainless model. So what you're essentially getting here is 2.5-inch piping. Again, it's all T304 stainless. And then it comes with a 4-inch ceramic coated black tip. You'll see up top here, it has the Gibson logo etched into the edge of the tip, which you can't really see as much on these black tips compared to the polished versions. Being in Ontario, Canada here, of course, I decided to go with the stainless option. It has a limited lifetime warranty, and I was hoping that this would hold up pretty well, because the whole reason I put this thing on the 4Runner in the first place is because the original exhaust rotted off completely. So I didn't want to be replacing exhausts often. So as you can see, this tailpipe, it's crusty looking, like it's stained, but everything is holding up really well. And again, our Ontario winters are not kind to vehicles, that's for sure. So moving forward, let's take a look at how the muffler is looking. First of all, that's the remaining factory exhaust. You can see it, so you can compare what kind of condition it's in. Muffler's holding up pretty good. Again, just like some staining here and there, but it looks okay. Now, I'm not sure if you can see the flange through here, but no real noticeable corrosion or anything out of the norm there. I've seen some other aftermarket exhausts that are completely rotten through at the welds and stuff, but this one's holding up pretty good. So overall, I have to say I'm pleased with how it's holding up. Again, it's been like 4 years, so this is a pretty good test. According to Gibson on their website, they claim that this exhaust is dyno proven to add 10 to 15 horsepower and I think 15 to 20 foot-pounds of torque. I don't think you get an exhaust like this necessarily for performance improvements, though. I think it's more about the sound, and you would never know it by listening to one of these 2UZ V8s with a stock exhaust on it, but these are actually fantastic sounding engines on these trucks. I don't know, maybe it's just my city, but it seems like there's a whole trend of Ram owners that just like to chop off their mufflers and keep the stock, small piping, just to make them as loud as possible. But that's not the idea behind an exhaust like this. This is intended to be more of a refined sound. It's not the loudest thing on the block, which is fine. That's not what I want. This is just about getting a nice, crisp, high quality sound that makes it sound like a V8 vehicle, because in stock form, these things do not sound like they have a V8 in them. It's definitely worth noting that I do have a pair of Doug Thorley short tube headers on this, but I ran them all by themselves, right? With the completely factory exhaust, factory cats and everything before I put this Gibson on, so I confirmed that the headers didn't make any difference in terms of the sound. So the big question right here is, does this exhaust still drone? And again, that was my biggest complaint in my original video. And it was pretty bad. It was bad enough that I kind of kept mentioning it. I love everything about this exhaust except for the drone. And it's kind of funny to me because Gibson on their website, I believe they even state that there's no drone with this exhaust system whatsoever. And back then I was kind of like, well, that's fake news then, because I got a ton of drone and I made sure everything was installed properly. I didn't have any vibrations anywhere or anything like that. And it was still droning. So now that it's been, I don't know, 4 years and probably 40,000+ kilometers, is it still droning? And I am happy to report either my ears have been like tuned up to just completely ignore it now, or my drone is gone. I think a big thing here is giving the muffler a chance to like fully break in before you judge this exhaust. And I think that goes for any exhaust system really. I've seen videos of other exhausts on other vehicles, and people bolt them on and they drive them for a week or something, and then they take it back off and they say, oh, it sounds horrible, the drone is super brutal, whatever. And they don't give it a chance. You got to let it break in. It needs to go through like a whole bunch of heat cycles and stuff to like fully perform the way that it's supposed to. If you haven't watched all my previous videos, I actually packed this 4Runner up and hooked a camper trailer up to it with my wife, and we drove across Canada for our honeymoon. It was almost 11,000 kilometers round trip. We were gone for an entire month that we were driving every day. Some days up to 1,000 kilometers in a day we would log. So that's quite a bit of time spent on the highway. And especially towing a trailer with some load on it. Highway driving is right around that drone spot that I complained about. And neither one of us ever mentioned it, not even once. Another thing worth mentioning when it comes to proving that the drone is not an issue anymore is that my 4-month-old little guy sleeps in the back of this thing when we're driving, and he never wakes up from it. It never bothers him, and that guy will wake up if I sneeze or cough a little bit too loud, so that's really saying something. What would an exhaust video be without some in-car footage, right? So let's go ahead and get out on the highway. Okay, so normally the drone spot that I talked about was right around this 1800 to 2000 RPM spot, and either I've gone hard of hearing, or I'm just like getting used to this, or the drone is gone, but I really don't hear it that much anymore. In terms of performance gains, I really haven't felt much from the exhaust on its own, but I think anything I've felt has been from the Doug Thorley headers. I don't think this exhaust is really giving you much of a seat of the pants kind of feel, but it doesn't hurt. But just cruising at part throttle like this is very manageable. It feels very stock, really. And we're back. Can we just go ahead and edit that so that they don't know that we shot this kind of all out of order? So let's get to some pros and cons on this exhaust. And I think there's a few things worth talking about here. So for pros, I think the sound is, I think it's as good as it gets for this vehicle. Again, it's like a really refined, crisp V8 sound with none of the obnoxious, annoying stuff like the burbles and the snap, crackle, pops. You can make it louder by either running different exhausts or just chopping your muffler off, but it's not gonna sound good. It's gonna sound kind of raspy, and that's just not my thing. I find that the sound of this is everything that I was looking for when I was shopping for an exhaust for the 4Runner. It sounds like a V8 now, that's for sure. Huge improvement over the stock exhaust. But I can start this thing up at 6 in the morning and I'm not gonna wake up my neighbors and annoy the whole neighborhood. The next thing is the value. I think the price of this exhaust, I don't know what they sell for right now, but I think they're around $500 or $600. For a complete catback system, that's pretty good. And this is intended to just bolt on in your driveway, like really quick and easy as well. And on that note, I think the build quality is really good. Obviously, I just showed you, like aside from some staining, this exhaust is really holding up well. Since it's stainless steel, this is not only gonna outlast some of the cheaper aftermarket exhausts out there, but chances are it's gonna outlast an OEM exhaust too, because again, mine kind of rusted out. And now for the cons. And I think with any aftermarket product, there's always gonna be some give and take, some ups and downs. You're not gonna have anything perfect. And so there were a couple things on this exhaust that annoyed me a little bit. And it's also worth mentioning, guys, that I have no affiliation with Gibson whatsoever. I've never worked with them. I don't think they even know who I am. They're certainly not paying me to make this video. So this is all very honest opinions here. You may notice when you're shopping for this exhaust that there's one part number for a huge span of 4runners, right? So whether you have a 4th gen or a 5th gen, it's the same part number. And to have one part number go from 2003 all the way up to 2023, that's 20 years, one part number, nothing changed really? Like, that's a little weird. On top of that, it's also one part number whether you have a V6 or a V8 engine in your 4Runner. And the reason why they do this, it's not because the exhaust is identical for all of these vehicles, of course it's not. They do this because regardless of what your model requires, they just send you everything, all of the different options to make it fit your truck. So what am I gonna do with this? This is the extra tailpipe. I'm assuming this is a tailpipe for a 5th gen. I paid for this, but I'm not using it. And there's also another, like a midsection pipe, which I'm assuming is the difference between the V6 and the V8. Why am I paying for pipes that I can never use? It makes no sense to me to have one part number and have the whole inventory that we have to buy and pay for shipping. It seems wasteful to me. The only other con that I can come up with is I did notice that the ceramic coating on my tip very early on started flaking off, like on the inside of the exhaust tip. And I think that's kind of a manufacturer defect. That shouldn't be happening, especially like it was new. It was like maybe a month old and it was already starting to happen. That's definitely a defect. It's not worth warrantying or anything for me. I wouldn't bother like shipping it back to them or anything, but it's just a minor quality control issue there. Now, forgive me for sounding a little salesy here. I think this exhaust is a must-have for these V8 4Runners because in stock form, they don't sound like they have a V8 engine at all. And it's such a great sounding engine once you open it up. And you completely miss out on that when you have a stock exhaust on your V8 4Runner. And I really do think it's a must-have. For the price, the easy install, the way it holds up, it just sounds so good. You've heard me rev it, you've heard me do like wide open throttle runs in this video. It sounds angry when you get on it. Like there's no doubt if somebody hears this thing when you're driving hard, there's no question whether this thing has a V8 in it or not. But the best part is, as soon as you back off the throttle and you start driving around like a normal human being again, it just shuts up. It really is kind of like a Jekyll and Hyde thing. When you start it up in the morning and it's nice and quiet, you just kind of idle your way out of the neighborhood like a normal vehicle, nobody bats an eye. It doesn't get anybody's attention. And yet, if you rev it even just one time, it's like, whoa, what just made that sound? Is there like a hot rod around here somewhere? And so to me, I think it's a perfect combination. And I highly recommend this exhaust to anybody that wants to get a little bit more sound out of their V8 4Runner and arguably maybe a little bit more performance. Again, I don't know. But again, I keep on going back to this fact, you have to let it break in before you judge it. And that's the main thing. Just give it a chance. And I do believe that the drone will go away as long as everything is installed properly and you don't have anything rubbing or vibrating on something. Some people have made a mistake of installing the muffler backwards. Apparently that can cause some drone too. So as long as you confirm that everything is done right, just give it time and it's going to clear up, and it's just going to be such an awesome sounding vehicle in the end. So thank you guys for watching. I hope this video helped you out if you're considering this exhaust for the 4Runner, and let me know what you think in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, first of all, make sure you do the old thumbs up, like button. But aside from that, go and check out this video, because in that one I explain why I got rid of my K&N air filter on this 4Runner, and I went back to just a stock style paper air filter. Go ahead and check that one out if you want to. Thanks for watching, guys. See ya.